Hey everyone, and this is Lee from the 3D Modeler. Welcome back to my channel. First of all, thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please don't forget to click the subscribe button. Today, in part 3 of our series on creating 3D furniture models suitable for production, we will continue the process of texturing the contemporary nightstand cabinet model we created using 3ds Max in part 1 and unwrapped in part 2. We will also learn how to use the Leonardo AI tool to elevate our design. So don't miss this and let's get started. Now we are in 3ds Max, and as you can see here, it is our unwrapped contemporary nightstand cabinet model we developed using 3ds Max in previous parts of our series. I have placed our model in a standard studio setup for illustration, and I have already rendered the UV templates for all the objects of our model. Now we are ready to go to Photoshop and start creating the texture maps. And by the way, if you want to learn how to unwrap such a model and how to efficiently pack your UV elements and how to render the UV templates, you can watch part 2 of our series, and I will leave the link for you in the description below. Now we are in Photoshop, and here it is, our UV template, which contains all the UV elements for the objects that will be textured using a grained wood texture. And here it is, the UV template, which contains all the UV elements for the drawers of our model. Now let's prepare the Photoshop layers to create our texture maps. First, I will start by creating an empty layer. Then I will unlock the UV template layer and I will move it upward like this. Then I will select the empty layer, Ctrl Delete to fill it with a white color like this. Then I will select the UV template layer, Ctrl I to invert the colors. Then I will convert this layer into a multiply layer. Then I will select both layers and I will lock them like this. For testing, let's add an empty layer between these two layers and let's start painting any color on this empty layer like this. And as you can see, now I can make any edit I want between these two layers, but at the same time I can see the position of our UV elements. And this is how I prepare my Photoshop layers, and now we are ready to start creating our texture maps. I will start by creating the diffuse map for the objects that will be textured using the grain wood texture. And here it is, the grain wood image. We will use Ctrl A to select the whole image, Ctrl C to copy it. Then let's paste it between our two layers by clicking Ctrl V. Now I want the direction of the grain of the wood to move horizontally across these two UV elements. So I will move our wood image like this until it covers these two UV elements. And to check our progress, let's disable the UV template layer, and from File, save a copy, and let's save our diffuse map as a JPEG file, and I will call it grained wood diffuse. Save, yes. Okay, and now let's go to 3ds Max to check our progress until now. Now we are in 3ds Max, and I will start by creating a new material. I will open my material editor by pressing shortcut M. I will select a new material, then I will create a new V-Ray material, and in the diffusion slot I will add a bitmap, and in the bitmap I will select our grained wood diffuse image and press open. Then now let's select the object that will be textured using the grain wood material, then assign our new material to our object. And as you can see, the upper and the lower surfaces of the most outer layer of our nightstand cabinet is perfectly textured. The direction of the grain of the wood is correct and everything is just perfect. Now back to Photoshop to complete our maps. back to Photoshop and let's continue creating our diffusion maps. Now I want to texture the bottom of our nightstand cabinet. This UV element represents the bottom of our nightstand cabinet, and I want the direction of the grain of the wood to move vertically in this direction across this UV element. So I will select our wood image, Ctrl J to duplicate it, then I will rotate it 90 degrees by pressing Shift while rotating, then I will move it like this and I will choose a nice flow for the grain like this. Press enter. Now I will activate the make selection tool by pressing M and I will select this portion of our image, our wood image like this, then Ctrl J to duplicate it, then I can now delete the large image. Now as you can see, we have added texture to the bottom of our nightstand cabinet. Now I want to texture the front and the back surfaces of the most outer layer of our nightstand cabinet, which are represented by these three straighten UV elements. And by the way, if you want to learn how we made this UV template and how we arranged these UV elements, you can watch part 2 of our series, and as mentioned before, I will leave the link for you in the description below. Back to our texture process. Now I want the texture in this part of our cabinet to be a narrow, thin lines grained wood. And to do so, I will select our image, Ctrl J to duplicate it, then I will move our image aside like this. Then I will compress it by pressing Shift and move the side of the image like this. Then I will move our image until it covers these three straighten UV element like this and press enter. Now let's activate the make selection tool by pressing M and let's select this part of the image like this, Ctrl J to duplicate it, and now we can delete the large image. And as you can see now, we have textured the front and the back surfaces of the most outer layer of our nightstand cabinet. Now I want to texture the insignificant UV elements, which are represented by this group of UV elements. And as mentioned in part 2 of our series, the insignificant UV elements represent surfaces that are hidden from the cam. So to texture these UV elements, let's duplicate our wood image, move it aside like this, and let's scale it down like this and adjust its position to cover all the insignificant UV elements like this. Press enter. Now let's activate our make selection tool by pressing M and let's select this part of the image like this, Ctrl J to duplicate it. Now we can delete the large image like this. And as you can see, now we have textured the insignificant UV elements of our nightstand cabinet. Now we have finished creating the diffuse map for the objects that will be textured with a grained wood texture. Now we can disable the UV template layer and let's save our diff image, save as a copy. I will save it as a JPEG file and I will call it grained wood diff, save, yes. Okay, now let's go to the 3ds Max to check our progress until now. Now we are in 3ds Max and I have already assigned our wood material to all the objects that will be textured with a grained wood texture. And now let's press on the random button. And here it is, our contemporary nightstand cabinet model. And as you can see, all the objects that will be textured with a grained wood texture is perfectly textured using our diffuse map. The direction of the grain is correct in all parts of our model. We can say that our diffuse map is done. We still need to make the bump map and the specular map. And by the way, if you want me to make a tutorial video on how I built this standard studio setup to showcase your product here in 3ds Max, just leave a comment and I will make it for you. Now back to Photoshop to continue creating our texture maps. Back to Photoshop and let's create our bump. First, I will select all the layers representing the diffuse map, Ctrl G to group them in a folder. I will call this folder diff map. Then Ctrl J to duplicate it, Ctrl E to merge all the layers in the folder into a single layer, then Ctrl Shift U to convert our diffuse map into a grayscaled image. Now we want to create our bump map, so we will add a new level adjustment layer to increase the contrast in our image like this. Now we can save this image as our bump map from File, Save a Copy. We will save it as a JPEG file and I will call it Grained Wood Bump. Save, yes, okay. Now we want to create the specular map, and if we disable the level adjustment layer, we will see that the grayscale image of our diffuse map has a low contrast, which is very suitable to be used as a specular map. So we will save this image as our specular map, so save a copy, JPEG, and I will call it Grained Wood Spec. Press save, yes, okay. Now back to 3ds Max to continue creating our wood material. Now we are in 3ds Max and let's continue creating our wood material. First, let me open the material render window. We are looking for a sleek, semi-reflective wood finish. And to achieve this look, first I will increase the reflectivity of our material like this. And now let's render our model. As you can see here in the render viewport, our material become a reflective material, but we are looking for a sleek, semi-reflective wood finish. And to achieve this, first I will add our bump map to the bump slot like this. And I will reduce the blurriness of our image to 0.5 to make it sharper. And now let's render our model. As you can see in the render viewport, the intensity of our bump map is very high. This look is suitable if we are looking for a rustic wood finish, but we are looking for a sleek, semi-reflective wood finish. So I will reduce the intensity of the bumpness from 30 to 2. Now, as you can see here in the render viewport, this intensity is suitable for the finish we are looking for. It added some distortion to the reflection of our material, which make our material looks more realistic. Now let's add our specular map to the glossiness slot like this. And as you can see, once we added our specular map to our material converted from reflective to a matte material. So we need to reduce the effect of our specular map from 100% to 20%. And now let's render our model. And as you can see in the render viewport, now our material become semi-reflective material. Although it has nice highlights at the corner edges of our model, I think we have achieved the sleek, semi-reflective wood finish we are looking for. Now, back to Photoshop to create the texture maps for the drawers of our nightstand cabinet. Now we are in Photoshop and I have already prepared the UV template of the drawers of our nightstand cabinet, and as you can see, these two UV elements are the important UV elements which represent the front surfaces of our drawer which will be facing the cam, while these group of UV elements are the insignificant UV elements representing hidden surfaces from the cam. And by the way, if you want to learn how we made this UV template and how we arranged these UV elements, you can watch part 2 of our series, and as mentioned before, I will leave the link for you in the description below. And here it is the image we will use to texture the drawers of our nightstand cabinet. This image is an AI generated image. I used Leonardo AI tool to generate it of a chest of drawers with a contemporary oil painting on its drawers. And by the way, Leonardo AI tool has a great upscale feature which allow us to upscale the generated image to a high resolution image, which is very suitable for our texturing process. As you can see in our image, we need to remove the handle from the image. So by selecting the handles area, then pressing Shift F5 to open the fill window using content aware, press OK. And as you can see, we have removed the handle from our image. After some editing, I was able to extract this image that we will use to texture the drawers of our nightstand cabinet. Now let's select the whole image by pressing Ctrl A, then select our image, Ctrl C to copy it. Now let's paste it between these two layers, and let's start adjusting the size of our image until it covers the important UV elements of our drawers like this. Now let's use the mix selection tool to select the area of the front surface of the lower drawer like this. Ctrl J to duplicate it. Let's disable it. Back to our large image and let's move it downward like this. And we will press on Shift to constrain the movement to the vertical direction. Then let's select the area representing the front surface of the upper drawer like this. Ctrl J to duplicate it. Now let's disable our large image. And as you can see, we have covered the important UV elements representing the front surfaces of our drawers. Now we still need to texture the insignificant UV elements. So I will select the area of the insignificant UV elements like this. Then I will create a new layer. Then we will pick a nice color from our image like this. Alt delete to fill this area, and we will texture the insignificant UV element with this color. Now we can save our diffuse map, and let's go to 3ds Max to check our progress until now. Now we are in 3ds Max, and let's create a new V-Ray material for the drawers of our nightstand cabinet like this. And let's add a bitmap to the diffusion slot. In the bitmap, we will choose our diffuse map. Now let's select the drawers object and let's assign our new material to it. And now let's render our model. And as you can see in the render window, the drawers of our nightstand cabinet are perfectly textured. We still need to make the bump map and the specular map. But before we go to Photoshop to continue creating our texture maps, I noticed that the reflectivity of our wood material is very high. So I need to reduce the reflectivity of our wood material a little bit. And I will do so by adding a fall-off map to the reflection slot like this. Then I will swap the colors so that the flat surfaces will be less reflective than the curved surfaces. I can also use the curve tool to adjust the amount of fall-off like this. And I also will increase the reflectivity of the flat surfaces a little bit like this, and I will reduce the reflectivity of the curved surfaces a little bit like this. Now let's render. And as you can see in the render window, the high reflectivity problem of our wood material is solved. Let's check the other cam. And as you can also see, we still have nice reflections at the top surfaces of our model. We also still have the nice highlights at the corner edges of our model. I think the high reflectivity problem of our wood material is solved. Now let's go back to Photoshop to continue creating the texture maps of the drawers of our nightstand cabinet. Now we are in Photoshop and let's continue creating our texture maps. First, I will select all the layers representing our diffuse map, Ctrl G to group them in a folder, Ctrl G to duplicate it, then Ctrl E to merge all layers into a single layer. Then I will press Ctrl Shift U to convert our image into a grayscale image. Now let's add a new level adjustment layer and I will reduce the contrast in our image like this. Now we can save it as a copy as our specular map and I will call it UV's drawers spec. Save. Yes. Okay. Now let's create our bump map. I want our bump map to give the painting layering effect. First, I will invert the color of our grayscale image so that our floral elements become more bumpy. Then I will add a new level adjustment layer and I will increase the contrast in our image like this. And let's save our image as a copy as our bump map. UV's drawer bump. Save. Yes. Okay. Now we have finished creating all the texture maps of our drawers of our nightstand cabinet. And by the way, I have already finished creating the texture maps for the wooden handle, the diffuse map, the specular map, and the bump map for our wooden handle. Now we are ready to go to 3ds Max to finish creating all the materials of our contemporary nightstand cabinet. Now we are in 3ds Max and let's continue creating the drawers material. First, let me open the material render window and let's increase the reflectivity of our material like this. And let's add our bump map to the bump slot like this. And I will reduce the blurriness to 0.3 to make it sharper. And I will reduce the bumpiness intensity from 30 to about 4. Now let's add our specular map to the glossiness slot like this. And I will reduce the effect of our specular map from 100% to 50%. And now let's render our model. And as you can see in the render window, the drawers of our nightstand cabinet are perfectly textured using the material we created, and our material perfectly resemble a realistic oil painting on wood. Now let's create the material for our wooden handle. First, I will copy our wooden material and I will change its name into wooden handle. Now let's replace all the maps in our copied material to the maps of our wooden handle. The diffuse map and the bump map, and finally our specular map like this. Now let's assign our new material to our handles and let's render. As you can see in the render window, our handles are perfectly textured using the material we have created for them. Let me check the other cam. And as you can see in the render window, our nightstand cabinet is perfectly textured using the material we have created for it here in 3ds Max, and using the texture maps we created for it using the UV templates in Photoshop. We have achieved the contemporary, sleek look we are looking for. Now we can say that the texturing process of our contemporary nightstand cabinet model is done. And finally, let me show you how I used Leonardo AI tool to elevate my design. First, we will render the front view of our contemporary nightstand cabinet model in 2K resolution. And after saving our render as a JPEG file, we will go to Leonardo AI website and start using its feature to elevate our design. Now let's save our render as a JPEG file, and I will call it front view .jpeg. And now let's go to Leonardo AI website. Now we are in Leonardo AI website. I have already uploaded our image. We will use the cinematic keynote preset with these settings. I have already added a prompt which is place this nightstand cabinet in a contemporary modern wooden Japanese style. And I like to use my image as a content reference. Now let's generate. And as you can see, Leonardo AI has generated some amazing designs for our nightstand cabinet. And since Leonardo AI has a great upscale feature which upscales the AI generated image into a high resolution 4K image, so we will choose the design we like, then we will upscale it to a high resolution image, then we will go to Photoshop to show you how to extract the texturing image from the AI generated image. Now we are in Photoshop, and as you can see, here it is our AI generated design I liked for our contemporary nightstand cabinet model. I used the fill with content aware to remove this seam, and I was able to extract this texturing image using the make selection tool. Now Ctrl A to select the whole image, Ctrl C to copy it, and we'll paste it in the drawers UV template by pressing Ctrl V. Now I will adjust the position and the scale of that image to cover the important UV element. I have already created the diffuse map, and I have taken a portion from the wood material and I used it to texture the insignificant UV elements. I also have created the bump map and the specular map, and I have saved them all as JPEG files. And by the way, if you want to learn how we created this UV template and how we arranged our UV elements, you can watch part 2 of our series, and as mentioned before, I will leave the link for you in the description below. I have also created a new wood texture to go with our new design, and I have also created its bump map and specular map, and I have saved them all as JPEG files. Now let's go to 3ds Max to create our final look. Now we are in 3ds Max, and as you can see, I have built a vibrant contemporary studio setup for our new design nightstand cabinet model. And I have already created our wood material and the drawers material and the wooden handle material. Now let's render our model. And as you can see in the render window, our new design contemporary nightstand cabinet model looks awesome. Using Leonardo AI tool has elevated our design to the next level. This is the end of our series on creating 3D furniture models suitable for production. In part 1, we modeled our nightstand cabinet in 3ds Max. In part 2, we learned how to unwrap its UVs. And in part 3, we textured it using V-Ray materials and learned how to use the Leonardo AI tool to elevate our design to the next level. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to me and motivate me to create even more awesome content for you. See you in the next one.